Yo, it's your boy DZ, man. You already know it's not about the setback. It's about the get back. Hey, man, I want to appreciate everybody that watches the channel. I appreciate everybody that subscribed to the channel. And I really appreciate y'all. And I hope y'all continue to watch. And today here, we're going to talk about what happened with Robert Brooks. Now, he was an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility in New York, right? And it was some COs that beat him until he was unalived. Now, you know, some people say he was in prison for something, so bad, but it didn't deserve for him to be killed. And I really want to know what you guys think about this situation. And when we see this situation, right, all these officers were white. They beat this man to death, stuffed something down his throat without any care in the world. And we would never know about this situation if he wasn't unalived. And we got to be honest in this situation. They beat the man while he had handcuffs. They stuffed something in his mouth while he was handcuffed. They picked him up by his collar while he was handcuffed, walked him out hogtied, took all his clothes off of him. The man was killed. And I say this because this happens at correctional facilities all the time. This is nothing new. But when something goes this far to this magnitude, now they have to report it to the public. And I want to know what y'all think about this, right? It took them 3 weeks to report this to us. They really didn't want to. And the Attorney General, she states that she didn't want to bring this video to us. Come on now. She didn't want to let us know what really goes on inside of this prison. This is the games now. And we all know that inside these correctional institutes, people are handled however they want to handle people. Now, these people come to work every day and they have chips on their shoulders. They're going through things at home, and I'm sure they have a tough job to do. Honestly, I know they have a tough job to do because you're dealing with different personalities of criminals, right? But if you don't understand how to deal with people in these situations, you shouldn't be qualified for this job. It looks like they just took their anger out on this black man. And the whole situation was wrong. They didn't have their body cams on. They were turned off because they knew what they were about to do. They planned this situation. And I feel they all should be charged with murder. I feel that they should not get a pass at all. There shouldn't be a slap on the wrist in this situation. The public has already convicted them because we see what happened. It's like they can't lie and say, well, this is why this happened and they didn't mean for this to happen. They meant for this situation to go the way it went. And they deserve to suffer consequences as if they murdered someone. And they should be housed in the same facility where the crime occurred. And, I want to know how you guys feel about this situation. And as we see, they really didn't want to expose this information to the public. And, I'm going to let everybody see, this news clip here. And, we're going to talk about it, man. I really appreciate everyone that's tuned in here.
Inmate at a prison in New York after he was beaten by corrections officers. Today, New York's Attorney General released body cam video and called what happened shocking and disturbing. Here's Sam Brock, and a warning, this video is graphic.
Newly released shocking video shows these correctional officers fatally beating an inmate, Robert Brooks. The footage, blurred and redacted by state authorities, shows officers repeatedly kicking and punching Brooks in the legs and chest and trying to jam an object down his throat. New York's Attorney General says Brooks was pronounced dead December 10th, a day after these interactions with correctional officers was recorded.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
James says the video doesn't have audio because the officers involved failed to properly activate their body cameras. It begins with Brooks being carried inside, handcuffed and face down. He's then raised up, face bloodied, and punched in various parts of his body. Brooks was serving a 12-year sentence for stabbing his girlfriend. His attorney says his death is incomprehensible.
I was there with Mr. Brooks' son and his father and his brother. They all watched the video as well, and I think it was just the overwhelming shock. It was just felt so incomprehensible.
NBC News has not been able to reach attorneys for the 14 people under investigation, but the president for the Correction Officers Benevolent Association adding in a sharply worded statement, "The egregious and repugnant action of the officers who committed this heinous and fatal assault does not in any way reflect the values of the vast majority of correction officers, including my members."
13 personnel are currently suspended without pay. Another has resigned as the investigation continues. And yet, Tom, there are still questions tonight about what happened that led to the beating that we just saw. Tom?
Sam Brock with...
Hey, man. Now, we all just seen that, right? These officers had their body cameras turned off. They fatally beat this man to death. And we would have never known about how these things take place in this Marcy correctional facility if the man wasn't unalived. They would have never told the public if they would have beat this man and he still lived, if he had black eyes, a broken jaw, broken arms, we would never know about what happened. The only reason we know is because he was killed. This is the only reason the public knows what happened to this man. And I'm telling you, this goes on in all the prisons across the world. But being as though that he was killed, they have to report it to us, right? And 13 officers were suspended because of this. And we're just finding out about this 3 weeks after the incident happened. See, this lets you know that they don't care. The prisons are out of control, man. The COs, they deal with issues at home and they bring it to the prison. Now, we all understand that people in prison, you know, they have certain behaviors and certain ways that they act. So, you know, sometimes the COs have to be aggressive to the inmates, right? But if you can't handle that job and understanding how to subdue someone and, you know, put them wherever they belong at inside the prison, instead of handcuffing them and then beating them to death. See, they got their anger off on this inmate. And we all got to be honest here. They used whatever they were going through that day and they took it out on someone that was handcuffed, that couldn't even defend themselves. And you can see here, the officers were kicking and punching him for no reason. He was already handcuffed. And I really want to know, what do you guys think about this situation? You know, let me know, if this was one of your loved ones, how would you feel about this? And have you ever had a loved one experience anything to this magnitude? Because it happens every day. It's just not talked about every day until the situation goes this far. And we know that he was in jail for stabbing his girlfriend. He had a 12-year sentence for stabbing his girlfriend. But jail is supposed to be a place where you are able to reform. And let's be honest, that's not what jail does for us. When you go to jail, you got to get with the program. You have to get weapons. You have to defend yourself. In some prisons, you have to get down with the gang so that you can have protection, because you're not protected in jail, right? So the mentality that you get when you go to jail, if you weren't a violent person, you have to become violent, right? And for these officers to take it this far, this is something that they've been doing for so long. They've been used to turning their body cameras off. They've been used to beating inmates up. They've been used to doing this type of behavior, and they haven't been corrected. But now that this situation went this far, it's being exposed. But it won't change the behavior inside of the prisons, because this is what's going to happen, because they're so used to doing this. They feel that they have to beat someone that can't defend themselves to show their authority. And if you're watching this video, hit the like button, share this video. I'd appreciate it. We see that this goes on all across the world. And this is not the first incident we've heard about the COs beating the inmate to death. This is not the first incident. I did a video a couple months ago on it. This happens all across the country, but we just don't hear about how bad inmates get beat by these COs until somebody dies. And no matter what he was in jail for, nobody deserves to be beat by the COs until they're unalive. And I think that, you know, it might cause some attention to the situation, but the COs are still going to do this, because when things go on inside these prisons, they really don't get reprimanded. They get a slap on the wrist, and they might get addressed in front of certain people, but then behind closed doors, they're high-fiving each other. They're congratulating each other. But these are the things that we don't see as the public. We don't get to see how these things go behind these doors until the situation has gone this far. And this lets you know that they don't care. It looks racially motivated to me. All of these white men beating a black man that is already handcuffed, it looks racially motivated. And I'm sure during the process, they were talking shit to each other. They were excited about this, because we can see how I showed the clip. The officer just out the blue punched this man in his ribs. And then they were trying to stuff things inside of his mouth. For what? Why were they trying to stuff a cloth down this man's throat for? What did they expect to accomplish by stuffing something down this man's throat? Now, if you think this was racially motivated, leave a comment. Let me know how you feel about this. Or do you think that this was justified for them to beat this man, but it just went too far? We all know that this goes on daily, man. This goes on daily in the prisons. These officers are dealing with things in their life They got issues towards black people. And when they come in there and they're challenged in any way by a black person, they take aggression. They take offense, right? And they want to show the authority that they really have. And I want y'all to pay attention to that, right? Because this is happening all across the world, man. And the Attorney General really didn't want to show what was going on, right? But she had to, because the brother was killed. That was the only reason we know about what happened. If he wasn't killed, we would never know. Nobody would know. Because every day someone is beat inside of these prisons, but we don't know because it didn't go that far. We only know when something goes whereas though they have to report it to the family. And even when they beat an inmate where they might have black eyes, even if they break an arm, they don't report it to the family. They don't call and tell the family that it was an altercation between the inmate and the CO, and the CO beat the inmate. This is only reported, you hear me, when it goes to this length. Now people have to be fired. So we know about this now. The family is in outrage. Their loved one is in jail, and we know he was in jail for a serious offense, right? But did that cause for the officers to handcuff him and continue to beat him until he was not breathing? I think not, in my opinion, you know. And I think that no matter what somebody is in jail for, they don't deserve this kind of treatment. They don't deserve to be beat as they're handcuffed by a bunch of white men. Come on now. And when we're looking at everybody's standing here participating, and everybody feels like this is the norm. This is what we do. Because if this wasn't the norm, they wouldn't be sitting there as if this was okay. And we all got to be honest. This is the norm inside of the prisons, man. They discuss these things. When a code is called, they all come and they're ready to put hands on somebody. They're not ready to subdue you, put handcuffs on you, and take you to whatever holding cell that they do as a protocol. No, they want to get frustration off. And I'm sure that they didn't think that this was going to lead to them killing him, because they've done this before. This is not a first time here now. This ain't something that just happened. You know, they didn't just get into this situation the first time and, oh, this is the first inmate they put their hands on. This is a learned behavior. This is taught. When they go to school, they're taught to use excessive force, right? But nobody's thinking that somebody's gonna die, right? Now, they gotta call this man's family and tell this man's family that he died. And now they can't cover it up because it's video. If we didn't see the video, do y'all understand how this crime would have been covered up? Especially with all these white folks? Let's be real now. Let's be real. This crime would have went straight covered up if this man didn't die. And I hope that they get the max, honestly, because I'm sure for years they've done this type of behavior. It's too many COs in this room for someone not to say, hold on, man, you're going too far, dude. Take it easy. All right, that's it. Everybody sat and watched and participated. They wanted to make sure that they beat this man till he was unalive. And, you know, I really hope that they get the worst consequence there is. Life. They need to serve life. Because they took this man's life for no reason. He was already handcuffed. Whatever they wanted to do, as in placing him in another unit, placing him in a holding cell, they could have done that. They took this man and beat him until it was over for his life. And I really want to know how you guys feel about this, man. I want to know, do y'all feel this was racially motivated, or do you feel that this was justified? You know, because, you know, there might be some people in the world that feels, you know, that have been COs before and that agree how far these COs take situations because they've been a CO before, and they feel that the inmates are disrespectful. They deserve what they get. But in this situation here, we see that these officers took it to another level. And the video showed they were punching this man and he was already handcuffed. There was no reason for them to continue to do anything after he was subdued with his hands behind his back. And I'm like, what threat could he have caused with his hands behind his back? And that's honest. How could he have hurt them in any way when he was handcuffed? But this goes to show you that this is the norm. This is what is expected of the COs. They do this without any care in the world, man. And I really think that, you know, the public, you know, as the public convicts other people for things, there needs to be an outrage with this. The public needs to really stand behind these guys need justice. See, you know, and what I see is the public picks and chooses who they want to address. And we see that the news, these outlets, they pick and choose what kind of pressure and who they put this pressure on, because they really don't care. And we got to be honest. It's crazy. Ain't no way that these people should have felt that comfortable to continue and beat on this man as he was handcuffed. However they got him handcuffed, he was handcuffed. They tried to stuff something in this man's mouth. I don't know where that protocol came from. I don't know what made them want to stuff something inside this man's mouth. But this is something that they do. I don't know if he was trying to spit towards them, but we didn't see that in the video. And I'm sure they would have showed that, and that would have been said because it is all on video. But what we do see is all these officers doing something to someone that was handcuffed. And they said it was 13 COs that have been placed on leave and 1 resigned. This is something that, you know, is real sick, man. This is a situation, you know, that needs to get more light. And what I see, like, honestly, when these people do things to this magnitude, they just brush over it, man. They just brush over it, man. Straight up. And it's not fair to the public to not know that this happened until weeks later. And the Attorney General stating that she didn't want to bring this to the public like this. This should have been brought to the public the same day. This should have been brought to the public the exact same day it happened, man. Just how if something was to happen on the street and someone was to get killed, When someone dies in a jail, it should be brought to the public ASAP, especially if they were beaten to death by officers. What investigation do you need? The man was handcuffed. It shows that he was beaten to death. What do we need to investigate here? There's nothing to investigate. We see it and it's on video. And for them not to have their body cameras turned on, they had intentions on beating this man and not being caught. They didn't expect for him to die, but they wanted to beat him bad because they didn't turn the cameras on intentionally. And we all know that they didn't give a fuck. They didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't think that this man was going to die. They didn't think this. Now that the man passed away, you know, I'm sure we're going to hear how sorry they were after we watched what we watched on video. You know, this is how they do us, though. So are we supposed to act like we didn't see what we seen? Come on, man. This is how it goes, man. That's why I tell you, going to jail, you're not reformed going to jail. Jail isn't a place to help you get understanding, to get better. You have to adapt to what's going on. There are ignorant COs in every single correctional facility out there. And yes, these COs are sick. And what we see is sick for these guys to beat this man. For what reason? And I wonder what is going to be their explanation of why this happened. And you know, now that they're going to be facing criminal charges eventually, because criminal charges are coming, right? The public is going to be enraged if they're not criminally charged. So criminal charges are coming, but you know, they want to act like as if they're investigating when we all see the evidence, right? So I'm sure they're going to talk to each and every one of them and hear the story. And after they hear the story, they're going to put out to the public what they want to. But eventually we're going to know the details. And you said 3 weeks late on showing this to the public was definitely intentionally. And I totally agree there. It was intentional because they wanted to figure out how they can present it to the public and make it as if all the other officers are not like this, right? When this is a learned behavior. There's no way that all of these officers were going to feel that comfortable beating this man with their body cameras off if this is something that they haven't been practicing. And we all got to be real with this. This is something that they continue to practice. You said priceless black people supposed to be so hard. It's crazy. It's real crazy that they took so long to let the world know when we are all watching what happened on this camera. This should have been let known to the public as soon as it happened. Think about it. Think about it, man. The game is designed for us to look a certain way, but they don't want to present when they're wrong. And I just can't believe that they took so long to enlighten us. I can't believe they held this information so long from the public of the world that this is going on inside the prisons. And you know, we all see Fulton County Jail. We all see what's going on there. Now, you know that the internet is so heavy now. We're seeing what's going on. The opinion is already formed. And they continue to do this because they're not checked. Because they are not checked on these situations. It's encouraged. And I want to be honest, man. These COs, and I'm sure if there's any COs that's watching, I would love to hear it. You know, these COs are informed to use aggression physically. Make sure that you do whatever you have to do. And think about this now. These are people that are being told this. So they could be upset about anything. The situation was under control here. Why was this man kicking on this man? Why were they punching on this man? Why were they trying to stuff something down this man's throat? Because this is a behavior that is taught by others. Because nobody's just coming to a job and, you know, no matter what the job is, and you think that you can get this physical with the inmates if you're not told that this is okay to do. They were told, you do what you got to do and we'll back you, right? But now that we all see that the body cameras were off, we all see that they were beating this man, and then the man died. So who's going to back him? No, they tried to hide it and cover it up, but they couldn't. They couldn't cover this up, man. The man died, man. And you know, it's just sick that this behavior continues to go on throughout the prisons, right? And these people are still not addressed the same way. They should be held as if they committed a crime that day. But no, they allow these people to go home, figure it out as they so-called investigate. This should be treated as if it was a crime that was committed on the street. They should have been arrested that day. They should have been held that day because the footage shows. What are we waiting on? Why do we have to wait for this process to start when we all see what happened? And I want to tell you that they don't care about human life. They don't care about what happens to inmates. Not at all. They look at it as they're in jail. So what? This is the justice system. You hear me? This is how the system goes. The system doesn't care. We all know that the system is real flawed, and you know, these things happen all across the country, man. And you know, it's like if you're incarcerated, you can be innocent, right? And we're not saying he's innocent, but you can be innocent of a crime, right? And they don't care what happens to you because you're inside of the system. They don't care what goes on with you because you are a product of the system at that time. And it looks crazy because they don't want to address these things and they want to try to hide them from the public. But when we all see it, this was wrong. Whatever this man did to get handcuffed, it didn't call for him to be beat on, man. And you know, I want to know what you guys think about this. You can let me know, man. I'm here to listen. Let me know what you think about it. We all want to know. Because have you ever had someone that was related to you being beat in a jail and they didn't report it? Because this goes on everywhere. There's people everywhere across the entire world that have experienced this right here. And the only time we get to hear about it is when somebody passes away. That's it. Any other time, they want to hide it. They don't want to tell us. They don't want to keep us informed that these COs take advantage of their position. These people be dealing with things at home, you know, family issues, and they come to work and treat the people at the job bad because what they going through at home. And we got to be honest here. So it's like they deserve whatever the max is. And that's just honest. Whatever the max is, they deserve it. And it's like, why do they feel so comfortable with doing things like this? Why do they feel so comfortable with doing things like this? Honestly. Because they're taught. This is what they're taught. When they get hired, they are taught. When they have these meetings, they are taught to use physical force. And people will get in these situations, right? And take it too far. They're not just taught to subdue the person and, lock them in a cell, They took this job on, and they should understand that this is what you're supposed to do. No. They take it to the length to a whole nother level, man. And it's bad, man. And, now we seeing firsthand, this ain't something that people want to talk about. Nobody wants to address these situations, honestly. They want to just let it go by. But, in certain situations, they want to overly address them. They want to make sure that they install in the public's head the information that they want to. I feel that the whole world should be talking about this right now. I feel that this should be discussed heavy. But I guess people think, no, we shouldn't discuss this because it was an inmate. They downplay the situation because someone is in jail. This is how it goes. When you're in jail, people feel like you should be subjected to this. Right? Maybe people think because of what he had been convicted of that he should be subjected to this. I'm sure his victim is probably smiling about this, right? Because he did something to someone else that he was convicted of, right? But not just him experiencing this. There's other people that experience the same treatment and they might not even be guilty. Because this is the learned behavior of all correctional officers. And then when you hear in the news where the facility makes a statement as in all of our officers are not like this, well, I would beg to differ. I definitely disagree. I really feel that all COs, and maybe 5% might stay away from this type of behavior because, you get a CO or two that is down to earth and understands that, you are in prison, but you do have a life to get back to. But most of them have this attitude towards inmates as if you don't deserve to live. You don't deserve anything, because you can call a CO for medical attention inside of a prison and they ignore you. They don't care. They don't want to help you. And we've seen instances where someone was going through a medical situation and the COs ignored them and they end up passing away. Your life is nothing to the Department of Corrections. Your life means nothing once you are incarcerated, right? No matter if you're not guilty or guilty, And like I did the thing on Fulton County jails. I showed the inside of their jails. one of the worst prisons in the country, right? But these things don't get publicized because they feel that people in jail are the scum of the earth. And they could be innocent now. But they think people in jail are the scum of the earth, so they deserve to be treated that way. You know? Don't reform the people going to jail so that they can come back to society and be productive. So you think about that. People got to go in there, adapt to the jails, as in dealing with the gangs, the violence, and then you got the violence from the COs. Where do you get reformed at while you're incarcerated? I really don't understand that. And I wish y'all could let me know. How do you get reformed in jail if when you go to jail, you have to adapt to a worse living structure than you did on the street? Nobody wants to answer that. That's the crazy thing. How do you reform going to jail if the living conditions are worse than you live on the street? You can't. So it mentally programs your brain to adapt to this way of living. And then you have to enter back into society with this mentality. That's why, you know, people revisit so often, you know, and for these COs to not even care and turn their body cameras off, we know they've done this before. Honestly, we already know they've done this before. They've beat other inmates, and I'm sure it's gonna come out that, you know, it might have been a report or two on a few of these officers, but it didn't go nowhere, you know, because that always comes out later. We always hear about it later, how it was some incident that happened, but it wasn't that major. And, you know, the inmate could have had a black eye, swollen lip, broken arm, anything of the above, but they would tell us, being as though that he didn't die, it wasn't that major. And the inmate caused this. This is how they doctor the paperwork in there, right? But I really think that all their body cameras should be running 24/7. There should never be a time where a CO's body camera isn't running. If you turn your body camera off, you lose your job. But no, they wouldn't do nothing like this, you know, because I guess it's hard to find COs to want to work in these conditions, right? So they accept all the negative behavior from these COs because nobody wants to do this job, right? This is not a job that, you know, people really want to sign up for. So they accept a lot of this behavior because of that, man. It's real bad, you know, that we're just hearing about this weeks after this happened, honestly. You know, and they're just telling us that, you know, these guys are suspended. Why weren't criminal charges filed when the public was enlightened on what was going on? Why weren't they filed as soon as they seen the video? What are they waiting on? That's because they don't care, man. I just want to be honest, man. They do not care. I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie before. I've seen officers beat inmates. I've seen it. The report gets doctored as they want it to be doctored because it's their report. They don't have to report to your family. I've seen people sending things home to their family, letting it be known that I've been beat. You know, I seen something on Facebook the other week where somebody's family member was beat. They had black eyes, you know, a busted lip, right? But it wasn't reported. It was justified inside the system. And we all know this is how they do. They don't care, man. It's foul that it goes that way, but this is the way it goes, man. This is the game. This is the game, man. And, you know, I really think they deserve the max of whatever. They deserve the max of whatever. And it's foul that this goes on, you know?
At the hands of multiple state corrections officers.
Yeah, we now have body camera footage showing what happened between 43-year-old Robert Brooks and those officers. This is Governor Kathy Hochul is calling for these state employees to lose their jobs. The encounter happening on December 9th at Marcy Correctional Facility, that's in Oneida County, located about 7 miles outside of Utica. Brooks died at a hospital the day after the assault, according to officials, on the morning of December 10th.
2.5 weeks after his death, the New York Attorney General's office today released body cam footage from multiple officers involved. The footage shows them attacking Brooks in the face, body, and neck while he is handcuffed on a table. A medical examiner later described his cause of death as asphyxia due to compression of the neck. A total of 13 corrections officers and a nurse have been implicated in this attack. Tonight, 7 News reporter Michael Schwartz is taking us through the body camera footage and showing us what happened leading up to Brooks' death.
Yeah, and we do want to warn you tonight, the video that you're about to see, it's very graphic and difficult to watch.
Disturbing new body camera footage shows the bloody face of 43-year-old Robert Brooks as he is being beaten by correction officers, struck more than a dozen times, all while handcuffed. It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional, just outside Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there, many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment, and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. That includes 2 sergeants and 1 nurse. The family of Robert Brooks has released a statement that says in part, "With the Attorney General's release of these videos, members of the public can now view for themselves the horrific and extreme nature of the deadly attack. As viewers can see, Mr. Brooks was fatally, violently beaten by a group of officers whose job was to keep him safe. He deserved to live, and everyone else living in the Marcy Correctional Facility deserves to know they do not have to live in fear of violence at the hands of prison staff. Michael Schwartz, 7 News.
Well, the union, the union representing those corrections officers did release a statement in response to the footage today, and that statement reads in part, "What we witnessed is incomprehensible to say the least and is certainly not reflective of the great work that the vast majority of our membership conducts every day. This incident not only endangers our entire membership, but undermines the integrity of our profession. We cannot and do not condone this behavior."
So, what I want to say to that, right, is we watched multiple officers beat this man, right? And it's 14 state employees that have been suspended by this situation. That's a large number of people to have been involved, witnessed, or participated in this behavior for them to even make the statement saying that the vast majority of the COs are not like this. See, this is how they try to deceive the public. When we all sat here and watched this, everybody, you said firing, they should be jailed. You hear me? Do you hear me? I totally agree, Celine. There's no way that these people should just be fired. They should have been locked up the day this video was seen by them, because it took them 3 weeks. Now, this happened December 9th. We are now here December 28th. Come on, man. This happened 3 weeks ago, man. And we're just hearing about it. And these officers have only one resigned and everybody else suspended. And they're calling for them to be fired. And like the attorney said, this is criminal. An indictment is coming. And I hope they indict everybody, even the nurse. There's no way that a nurse would sit there and watch and not even say nothing, and you are a nurse, while this man was beaten. Nobody deserves to be beat by COs that have a job to do as protecting and monitoring the inmates. Come on, man. Y'all already know this is a learned behavior, man. And I gotta be real with this, man. This is a learned behavior, man. It's crazy. It's totally crazy, man. And I say the only way we know about this is because the man died. So now think about it. The way they were hitting that man, right? And I'm going to play it again, man. I'm not even going to lie. I got to play this again. The way they were hitting this man is something that lets us know that they commonly do this. This is not something that just started. They didn't just have an incident with this one person. They beat the man. They dragged him around. They beat him some more. They tried to stuff something inside of this man's mouth. For what reason? I don't know. But this behavior is something that constantly goes on. And it's foul that someone had to die for this to even be exposed. I don't understand how they don't have a certain group of people that investigate these situations. And when I sit there and think about it, right, I know why they don't have it, right? They don't have it because if they start investigating these situations, they'll lose a lot of employees. Let's be real. If they start investigating things like this, they will lose a lot of employees, man. Because dirt's going to come up on everybody. But when they try to address to the public, they try to make it and sugarcoat it as if this is not something that happens on a regular. This is what happens, man. This is what happens when you go to jail. If you have an interaction with a CO and it goes left, they want to make sure they use excessive force. They want you to know that they have the authority. Come on, man. And I want to be honest, man. If these people were black correctional officers, they would have been arrested already. We got to be honest, man. Because I had did the story on the black correctional officers that did this to a white CO. They were arrested. The black correctional officers that did it to a white inmate, they were arrested. They were arrested. And we got to be real. If they were black, they would have been arrested. Straight up. And, you know, the public is watching this, and we got to wait now for the indictment to come down. They indict people for the smallest things throughout the world, but we have evidence here showing of the crime. And they're saying that, you know, it's still an investigation. This is what goes on inside the prison. And after, you know, they run through, you know, this situation lightly because this is not talked about. Nobody wants to express this. You know, this is not shared. You know, and I would appreciate if you guys shared this video. This is not shared. You know, nobody really wants to get into it because it was an inmate that was convicted of a crime and he was locked up. So they don't want to address that these people beat this man to death. Nobody really wants to address it. Everybody wants to, you know, keep it under wraps, right? But if this was something about P. Diddy, you know, everybody wants to address it, you know, because he's rich. He's a millionaire. But as we see, these officers beat a man to death. They're not really talking about it. We got a little light public, you know, statement from it. And that was it, you know. So I really think, you know, I hope they get the max. I hope they get life in jail. You know, in this situation, I'm for them to go to jail. I hope they go to jail. Real rap.
Of an inmate in a New York prison at the hands of multiple state corrections officers.
Yeah, we now have body camera footage showing what happened between 43-year-old Robert Brooks and those officers. This is Governor Kathy Hochul is calling for these state employees to lose their jobs. The encounter happening on December 9th at Marcy Correctional Facility. That's in Oneida County, located about 7 miles outside of Utica. Brooks died at a hospital the day after the assault, according to officials, on the morning of December 10th.
2.5 weeks after his death, the New York Attorney General's office today released body cam footage from multiple officers involved. The footage shows them attacking Brooks in the face, body, and neck while he is handcuffed on a table. A medical examiner later described his cause of death as asphyxia due to compression of the neck. A total of 13 corrections officers and a nurse have been implicated in this attack. Tonight, 7 News reporter Michael Schwartz is taking us through the body camera footage and showing us what happened leading up to Brooks' death.
Yeah, and we do want to warn you tonight, the video that you're about to see, it's very graphic and difficult to watch.
Disturbing new body camera footage shows the bloody face of 43-year-old Robert Brooks as he is being beaten by correction officers, struck more than a dozen times, all while handcuffed. It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional, just outside Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there, many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment. And this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. That includes 2 sergeants and 1 nurse. The family of Robert Brooks has released a statement that says in part, "With the Attorney General's release of these videos, members of the public can now view for themselves the horrific and extreme nature of the deadly attack. As viewers can see, Mr. Brooks was fatally, violently beaten by a group of officers whose job was to keep him safe. He deserved to live, and everyone else living in the Marcy Correctional Facility deserves to know they do not have to live in fear of violence at the hands of prison staff." Michael Schwartz, 7 News.
Now, I gotta say this, right? And I want to go back to the part where these officers were smiling. Look at this right here. They thought it was a joke. If y'all see this right here, right? These guys thought it was a joke. They sat there and smiled and watched while this happened, right? Because this is commonly happening inside the jail. This is what goes on inside of there, right? And you know, and if you're watching this video, I would appreciate it if you share it. You know, the world needs to be enlightened and they need to see this. You know, this needs to get that exposure, man. This is what goes on inside the prison. They don't care. They sat there and watched and smiled while these officers beat a man, because this is what goes on. Now, if someone would have did this to them, we wouldn't be hearing the same energy. And we got to be real. But being as though that, you know, it was the other way around, the energy is what it is, you know, straight up, man. And it's foul. I just want to be honest, man. It's foul. You look at this here, it's foul. It's straight foul, man.
Take lightly the
listen to this
release of
lady.
video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more.
So now look at that there, right? Why is this officer stuffing a claw in this man's mouth. This must be the common procedure inside of this facility. This must be the norm, the procedure inside of this facility to stuff something inside the inmate's mouth, to beat the inmates to a pulp. This is the procedure. This is the process inside of the Marcy Correction Facility and all the facilities throughout the entire country. I mean this, man. We're sitting here watching these men beat this man and stuff something inside of his mouth while he was handcuffed with his hands behind his back. Now, they just didn't expect this man to die, but they intentionally beat this man severely. And we have to be real with this, man. These officers deserve the max. Everybody in the room deserves some accountability. You know how they say, birds of a feather flock together. Every bird in this room needs to be held accountable, man. Not some of them. Not just the ones they seen on video. Everyone in the room. If you sat and watched this, you know how they say with the RICO charge, right? If you're involved in any way, if you have any participation, if you were there, you're guilty. This is the same situation with these guys, man. They need to be charged with the RICO and murder. This is a criminal enterprise. And let's be real now. This is a criminal enterprise. And they're supposed to be correctional officers. What correction did they do? What correction did these officers do? They were the problem. And we have to be real, man. Like, honestly, we have to be real. It's deep, man. Like, when we look at this now, this is deep.
Disturbing new body camera footage shows the bloody face of 43-year-old Robert Brooks as he is being beaten by correction officers, struck more than a dozen times, all while handcuffed. It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional, just outside Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released.
And what I want to say, what she just said there, they only investigate deaths, right? So if you beat a person nearly to death and they don't die, it doesn't get investigated. That's basically what this Attorney General is telling us. You can beat the inmates as bad as you want, but we don't investigate until someone dies. I wonder, did y'all take that the same way, or I'm the only one that took that way? They don't do no investigating when these officers beat someone bad. It's just when someone dies. So, of course, this behavior is going to continue to happen because it's not investigated. It's not addressed. They're going to continue to beat people. But if they don't die, they're good. But if they die, it's like they're taking a risk. So now they're going to say, make sure you don't kill them. This is some deep stuff here, man. I'm really bothered by this one.
Body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers.
So we're watching right here now, right? They have him hogtied with his hands bent up now, shoulders pushed up, his legs in the air, carrying him. And I'm sure they were tearing his shoulder joints up. I'm sure. They might even probably broke his arm in this situation, right? But they still continued to beat after this. And
officers
it's
into
crazy.
the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth.
Look, like he goes and gets a cloth from somewhere. Now, these guys are in the infirmary, right? And if you don't know what the infirmary is, it's where you go at when you're sick and, they put you down in the infirmary when you're sick and, you got some health issues, right? So you get to go to the infirmary. They take this guy to the infirmary, and this is the unit where you go if you have a medical issue, right? They took him where you go for medical treatment, and they beat this man to death. Come on, man. You can't tell me that this isn't a learned behavior, because they specifically took him to the infirmary because something was already going on with him, right? They took this man to the infirmary because he was already experiencing some issues. But they didn't care about that, right? And they continued to beat this man. Crazy.
He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves, and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window.
So they were willing to put gloves on to just beat this man, right? This is crazy. And they didn't care in the world. They had no care. You look at this man's face, man. Look at how he looks. He's cuffed. There's nothing he can do. It's multiple people that have hands on him. But they set up to continue to beat him. This is what they do now.
Another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses
What
him
is he
against
gonna
the
do?
window.
He's
held there
dangling.
for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there. Many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment, and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved.
And honestly, the governor needs to be fired. Being though that she's calling for these people to be fired and not criminally charged, the governor needs to be fired. Kathy needs to be fired. I'm hoping that people that are from New York are pressing Kathy. What do you mean they need to be fired? This is criminal. There's nothing about losing your job that we see here. Let them keep the job. Send them to jail. Like, come on, man. Look at this, man. Like, look at this man's face. Honestly, man. Come on, man. He's defenseless. There's nothing that he can do to harm these CEOs in this situation, man. Nothing. And they don't care because this is something that they do regularly. This is something that did not just start December 9th. This is something that has been occurring since the test of time. And we have to be honest with this. Like, come on, man. It's foul, man. And we sit here and look at this, and the Attorney General, come on, man. We looking at her funny too.
Investigates every
Come on,
case in which an officer of the law.
So she's telling us that she only investigates when someone is killed, not when someone brutally beats an inmate. You know, they have to die. The only time that their office steps in is when somebody dies. So what do you think is going to continue to happen? These guys are continuing. They're going to continue this behavior because they are not reprimanded at all. Now, when someone dies, they want to address the situation, right? And we're sitting here seeing that this is the only time they want to address the situation. And I really want to know, what do you guys think about it? You can call in. The line is open. I want to know, what do you guys think about it? Have you ever had this experience yourself or a family member? Like, this is foul, and we got to be honest.
Including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed.
And we're listening to the Attorney General saying, I do not take lightly to the release of this video. Like, what does she mean when she says that? You don't take lightly. You should want this video to be released. What do you mean? The world needs to see what is going on inside of these prisons. Because it's been going on for so long and it's been covered up. People think that this is where you need to be. Come on, man. Pay attention.
Cuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's.
So do y'all see that there? Are y'all seeing that? There's
Walk
2
into the
officers.
room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times.
Look at that. There's 2 officers punching this man in the face. And the man has his hands behind his back with handcuffs. You can't sit here and tell me that this is not the norm inside of a correctional facility. There's no way that the world can look at this here and say jail is a correctional facility. They need to change the name. They need to change the name. These people are not correctional officers. They are not correctional officers. They violently beat this man, and they're supposed to be correctional officers. So I guess this corrected whatever the problem was or whatever behavior he had. Come on, man. God.
Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 45 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves, and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there, many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment, and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. That
Fire what? They need to go to jail. And I'm hoping, because these type of people, right, they'll go home and take their own life in these type of situations. I'm hoping that they don't. I hope that they go and face the music. I'm hoping that they make sure they don't do anything to themselves. I want to see the trial of this situation. Really, though. I'm anxious because we already know that some of these officers are going to turn against the other ones. This is what's going to happen. All the ones that were doing the punching and the kicking, I'm hoping everybody that was sitting around, I hope they get held accountable as well. But I hope that they go ahead and turn directly on them people and identify why this happened and that this is a learned behavior inside of the jails. I hope they feel every bit of this. I hope they lose the separation from their families. I hope they receive life in jail because they deserve it, man. The man was defenseless with his hands behind his back. Do you hear me? And they continued to beat this man. And we got the attorney general here saying that they only investigate homicides. That's it. They don't investigate when the COs are beating the inmates regularly.
Side Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers.
You just look at this, man. And like you said, hey, Celine, I can't believe this even requires an investigation when we see clear as day what was done. I'm like totally agreeing with you this. I am totally in agreement with you. What is there to investigate? Question these so-called, I'm going to say, I can't even call these people COs, man. They're not COs, man. They're a disgrace to human life. Straight up. You've been employed to do a service, and this is the service you provide. They are a disgrace. So what is there to investigate? There is nothing to investigate. If they felt that this man needed to go in a cell, put him in a cell. He's in the infirmary. There's cells inside of the infirmary. This is a jail. The infirmary is where you go when you need medical attention, right? He is in the infirmary for some type of medical attention, right? And they took him to the infirmary because something else happened to wherever they took him from. And we have to be real. We didn't see that part. Not yet. Right? That might come out later. Something happened to him somewhere else inside the prison. And we all see this. because he was taken to the infirmary where you go for medical attention. We all see this now. And they beat the man where you go at for medical attention inside the prison. Man, these guys are animals, man. They're not COs. They're straight animals. This is crazy.
Officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times
and
with
look at
Brooks's
this.
own shoe.
Hold up. Look at this. The officer punched this man so hard, he had to look at his hand to check his hand out. I want y'all to catch this, bro. I want y'all to catch this. Look at this. Look at this piece of shit. Let's be honest. This officer punched this man so hard, right? After the man was handcuffed, he had to look at his hand because his hand was hurting. Now, these are the things that I know the jury is going to look at, but these are the things that the attorney general should have been looking at from the beginning. You know, she's a prosecutor now, attorney general. The prosecutor should have examined this video tooth and nail, just how we're doing it together, and seen that everybody in here was wrong. There's nothing to investigate. I don't even need you guys to make a statement. I'll charge you guys first, and then we will see who's going to be the one to come forward and tell their side of the story to try to get the best plea deal. I don't even need a statement from you guys. This is what the attorney general should have been doing. But this is why I say they protect this stuff. They embrace this stuff. And the only time they want to address this type of behavior is when someone dies. Check that out. The man is looking at his hand because it hurts from punching this man in the face. Come on, man. God damn. It's just sick, man. Oh, sick dudes, man.
Punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks.
And look at this guy now. Look at this guy. Look at this guy right here. I want y'all to check this out right here, right? After he punched this man in the face with a bare fist and it hurt his hand, now he wants to go put his glove on. Now he wants to have a glove to continue to punch him because it hurt when he punched him with his bare hand. This is deep, man. When we really look and get into this video here, you can see that this is a behavior that they continue to do. This is something that they normally do to the inmates. And we have to be honest, man. Now let's see what this guy does now.
9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as well.
So now check this out. Now we're going to say this. This guy that is right here, this is the guy that was punching Brooks in the face now, that put the glove on, that hurt his hand. His hand was hurting so bad that he had to go kicking. Now let's check that out together, man. Like, honestly, come on, man. Let's check that out. We're going to start right back here where he checked his hand. I want y'all to check this out with me now. I want y'all to check this out with me together, y'all. It's deep.
With the backwards hat, punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times.
He checks his hand out
with Brooks's own shoe. At this point,
he puts the glove on. Now check this out. He puts the glove on.
At 9:26,
his hand is hurting.
That shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen.
Now he wants to kick him
3 other officers
because his hand is hurting.
Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times.
And I want y'all to pay attention to that too. I want you to pay attention to how bad his hand was hurting. His right hand was hurting so bad, he continued to kick him and then tried to start using his left hand. Did y'all see that? Did y'all see that? Now watch him use his left hand now. His right hand is hurting. He already kicked the man, But now he has to use his left hand because his right hand is hurting.
3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves, and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses.
He said the only thing that needs to be figured out is the motive behind this. An investigation to rule whether this is a crime or not is insulting to the public. And I agree, Celine. I totally agree here. It's insulting to the public, man. It's making us look like we don't see this. Come on, man. What are you investigating? We all see this. And the video is detailing that they're hitting this man so hard that they're hurting from hitting him. Now, after the man hit this man with his right hand so hard, he has to switch to his left and his feet. Whereas though they said it took a week for the attorney generals to launch an investigation. Come on, man. Like, this is totally criminal and they know it, man. We can look at it. Let's just look at it, man. It's crazy. It's criminal.
Shows the bloody face of 43-year-old Robert Brooks as he is being beaten by correction officers, struck more than a dozen times, all while handcuffed. It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional, just outside Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers.
And this is why I tell you, wherever he was at before, this is where they started beating him at. And I want to say this to y'all. Wherever they brought him from, whatever unit he was on inside the jail is where they started beating him at. And I'm hoping that as this so-called investigation goes on, that they go back to the unit wherever this inmate was first subdued at, and ask the people that's on the unit what happened. Because I am guaranteeing you that they're going to say that whatever happened, they started beating him inside the unit. And after they beat him inside the unit, then they wanted to take him to the infirmary. And as they took him to the infirmary, they see that nobody is down there but them. Nobody can do anything but them. Anybody that's around is all with them. State employees. So now we can do whatever we want, right? And they continued to beat this man down in the infirmary until he died. We would have never been informed of this if this man didn't die. If they would have beat this man till he nearly died but stayed alive, we would never know because they would have covered it up. They would have made the excuse and the reason why he attacked them and why this happened. And we got to be real. So then you said she's full of shit. Her office should have released this on the 10th. And I totally agree. Her office should have released this video to the public on December 10th. No BS. But you know what? They were trying to see if it was any way that they can justify this, right? And now that they see there is no way to justify it, she wants to say why she didn't really agree with releasing this to the public. Come on. There's no justification in this video at all. At all. And so happenly, one of those body cameras were on and caught this situation when the other guys intentionally turned off their body cameras so that it wouldn't be recorded or detected of this behavior. And I sit here and tell you guys that this is the common practice of these so-called correctional officers. They couldn't hide it for whatever reason. Mr. Streets, not at all, bro. They could not hide this, and they tried. And I guarantee you, because it makes the system look as if they are. Actuality. They're definitely messed up, man. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. Hit that like button and share this video. I appreciate it, man. We all see in this video the crime that happened. And for them to say this is being investigated, it's definitely insulting to the public. And we have to be real. This is so much of an insult to the people because this is how they look at the average people. I'm telling you, law enforcement, which is the police officers, correctional officers, attorneys, they all look at the regular citizen, the people that don't enforce the law, as if you don't have common sense. So we're watching these so-called correctional officers beat this man to death, and being as though that they couldn't justify it, they present it to the public weeks later, and they try to dumb it down as saying all officers are not like this. No, this is a learned behavior. When they come into the game, they are taught by whoever the instructor is, you can use physical force. We got to pay attention to that, man.
Officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27,
you can tell the way the officer started hitting him with his left hand that he was right-handed. You can tell because of the way he was swinging his left hand, just trying to make sure that he hit him. But it was definitely awkward for him. After he put the gloves on, after he hurt himself punching this man. And this man is tied down. But they continue to beat him and kick him because they want to be aggressive. They want to make an example out of him, right? They want to get whatever frustration they have off on this inmate. And this situation went way far. They need to be charged with first-degree murder. This was intentional. You understand if it's 5, 10 people beating one person that they can die, right? Whereas though their hands behind their back, we understand that. They understood that, right? But they continued to do it because they wanted to. They planned to take this man to the infirmary where you're supposed to get medical attention and beat him. That was the plan. And I think, honestly, inside of this facility, that is the norm. And we're going to hear about that maybe if they want to enlighten the world, that this is the norm inside of Marshy Correctional Facility. When they want to beat you, they take you to the infirmary. If you get out of hand on the unit, they take you to the infirmary and beat you. This is crazy, man.
5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves, and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are...
But do you see that there? They picked this man up and took him to the window for what? Let's look at this.
He's held there for 3 minutes.
What is he held pressed against the window for if this wasn't torture? If they didn't have the intentions on torturing this man, beating this man, why did y'all pick him up handcuffed? Now, what protocol is this? Now, I don't understand that. What protocol is it for the so-called correctional officers, and I'm going to say these sick heathens? What is the protocol for them to take this man and hold his face up against the glass? What is the purpose? Unless you were trying to torture him. Come on, man. This video is enough evidence for criminal charges. There's no investigation that was needed in this situation whatsoever. There is no investigation that was needed, man. And this attorney general knows that, man. She needs to be held accountable. I'm saying everybody that's trying to dumb down this situation should be held accountable, man. There's no dumbing down what we seen to the world. How can you dumb this down? How can you make light of anything in this situation? There's nothing. We all see this. Like, this is foul.
Before he's put back on the table, Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there.
So now look at that there. Look at that there, man. Why is his pants stripped?
More than a dozen.
Why did they strip all of his clothes off of it? Why? Because they already knew he was dead. This right here is a sick act of some sick people, man. If you haven't already hit that like button, hit that like button. Share this video. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate it. This is a sick act of behavior from people that have already done this multiple times. This is nothing new for these guys. This is not their first time doing something like this. And we really, really have to be honest. We have to be honest, y'all. This is not their first time. You said, Mr. Streets, you said he dizzy and half conscious, slinging him around, crazy footage. It's crazy, Mr. Streets. Like, it's crazy. Ain't no way that there should be any investigation in this situation. Yeah, the nurse you see was laughing. Yes. Because they're used to seeing these COs bring people down to the infirmary and beat on them. This is a common behavior at Marcy Correctional Facility. They're commonly doing this. It's just the protocol. Whenever they feel like they want to beat on an inmate, they take them to the infirmary, and that's where they beat on them at. We are all seeing this, man. This right here is a crime, man. This is criminal. There is nothing to investigate. I can't even believe that they're saying that they're investigating. What are you investigating? The investigation is the video. I don't need to talk to none of you officers and hear what you have to say why you did this. I'm watching why you did it. Because you wanted to. Because you had a total disregard for the law. Exactly. This is definitely not their first rodeo. This is protocol. Shotgun. Listen, I agree. This is protocol. There is no way that they have just did this for the first time. There's no way. When we watch this, we can see that they do this regularly and they take them to the infirmary. This is the place where you're supposed to go for medical treatment, right? The infirmary is the doctor's office for the jail. You hear me? It's the hospital for the jail, right? That's what the infirmary is. But they took this man down there to beat him. It's crazy. God.
Members of law enforcement are there, many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
And listen,
is an attorney.
Hold up. This is a sergeant now. I want y'all to see that now. I really got to let y'all see that, right? This is a sergeant. This is a sergeant now. This is the person that's overseeing them. But he's involved. So this is why I tell you, this is protocol. There's no way that the bottom line entry COs would commit this type of behavior in front of a sergeant if they were not taught this behavior, man. Can we all be real here? There's no way that they would have done this in front of a sergeant if they were not taught to do this. Because your boss is the person that you wouldn't do certain things that you would do behind closed doors, right? So even if these guys were beating on people, they wouldn't do it in front of their sergeant unless their sergeant is agreeing with this. Seems like the whole staff is some type of clan. Ask me. Hey, Mr. Streets, I agree. I totally agree. I totally agree with you. This is what it looks like. They're a clan, man. And they commonly do this. This is what their protocol is. In front of the sergeant, like the sergeant is the one regulating the situation. The sergeant is the one that you want to keep certain things that you might feel you want to get in trouble away from. And let's be real here. Let's be real. The sergeant is the one that you want to keep this stuff away from. You don't want to do this in front of your sergeant because you feel that you're going to get in a problem. But they so easily perform these acts in front of a sergeant. That's because they all do it. This is what they do. And we got to be real. This is what they do. Come on, man. It's sickening.
Enforcement are there, many watching, some
Look at
seen
that.
smiling during the ordeal.
This
The
is
nurses.
horrific.
Norman Effman is
crazy.
an attorney with more than 50 years of experience
Crazy.
representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
Look at this, man.
What's going to happen here is clear to me.
Look at this.
There's going to be an indictment,
Look at this.
and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved.
Man, Kathy needs to be fired. I'm not even going to lie. They need to fire Kathy too. Kathy needs to be fired. The Attorney General, these people that are in position that oversee these type of situations, that take their time to address them, why are they there for? Come on now. Why are they there if it takes so long for them to address something that they deal with every day, which is crime? These are the people that get elected to be in situations, man. This is crazy, man. This is totally criminal, but they're acting like they need to investigate. This is crazy. Like, come on, man. It's deep.
It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary
It's
at
crazy.
Marcy Correctional just outside Utica.
My
That's
office
crazy.
investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a
Crazy.
correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
Man, you should be addressing anytime a crime happens, not just a fatality. How did she get in position, man? How did Letitia James get in position, man. The people elected this woman to be in position. Like, come on, man. They're comfortable because they've seen times and time again when a black person, unjustifiable death is on tape. Nothing happens. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? That they're so comfortable because they see when a black person is killed to this magnitude, nothing really happens. Ain't that something? Are we paying attention to this, man? She needs to be held accountable. I can't even believe that she's the face of the Attorney General saying that there is an investigation. Why? Why are you investigating what you seen for your own eyes? So you didn't see it? What do you need to look at? It's crazy. But we as the people don't keep our outrage consistent toward these things. And I agree, Celine. We don't keep our outrage consistent. But when it's something that they want us to be outraged to, we're all over it. When they influence us what we should be outraged on, everybody wants to back it. But this right here, we need to be enraged. These officers shouldn't be feeling comfortable right now. But I'm sure nobody's out front of their houses. I'm sure nobody's putting their address out there. I'm sure. This is how it goes. Mr. Streets, she's showing no emotions. She's a token. A face of reason is so fake. Like, seriously. She shows no emotion because she knows this commonly happens inside of the prisons. She knows people are beat every day inside of these prisons. But she had to address it because the family is going to file this lawsuit. You already know that. This video right here is enough evidence for criminal charges, civil, everything. There's no way you can doctor this. So, and I'm anxious to see where this started from, because obviously whatever this started from wasn't that serious to get started, because they're not telling us about that yet. Whatever happened for these so-called fake correctional officers to do what they did wasn't enough for them to do whatever they did, because they're not addressing that. They would have said what happened to lead to this. We only see the situation as of where it ended. Come on, man. Got to pay attention.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer...
Hey, and listen, I'm sitting here thinking about something, right? I think the protocol for them to put the cloth in his mouth is so that they don't get any blood on their hands. I don't know what y'all think about that. You know, y'all can let me know what y'all think. But I think the protocol with them was to stuff something in his mouth so when they punch him in the mouth, the blood doesn't get on their hands. Check that out now. I want y'all to play that back, because how soon as he stuffed it inside of the guy's mouth, he started punching him in the mouth, but the cloth came out. Pay attention to that. I want y'all to check that out together. We're going to check that out.
At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times.
Do you see that? He put the cloth stuffed in his mouth first and then proceeded to punch him in the mouth, but the cloth fell out as he was punching him. So I think that that was supposed to be the cushion for when he punches the guy in the mouth. But it fell out, so it hurt his hand behind that. Do y'all see that?
Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks.
Yes, this is the guy right here that stuffed the cloth and started to punch him in the mouth, right? But the cloth fell out, so he had no protection on his hand as he proceeded to punch him in the mouth. And now he wants to put the gloves on. Man, oh
Brooks
man.
and smacks him 3 times with Brooks' own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks' mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear.
And that's the same officer, like I said, that his hand was hurting. The hand was hurting so bad, he had to go to the left. The right was dead. He didn't want to hit him no more with the right hand. And I really think that these guys, as soon as this happened, they should have been tested and seeing the damage that was caused to themselves behind this. What happened? Because the guy might have broke his hand. He literally might have broke his hand in this situation. So you mean to tell me that this case caused you to hit this person that much that you broke your hand? So I'm hoping that they do some type of test with those things too. You know, it's been 3 weeks, so a little bit has healed, but there's still going to be some damage there. But damn, like, you serious?
Here 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody.
Look at
An
this.
officer changes his gloves, and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's...
I just can't get, why did they hold him there against the window? Is this trying to show like you want to lynch him? You want to hang him? Is this what the protocol is? To act as if you're hanging this man? Like, seriously. You said, Mr. Street, you said, right, something is off with this whole event. We need to look beyond the smoking mirrors. I'm telling you, it's more going on behind the scenes. And they're just showing us this part, but why did this start? I guarantee you they were beating this man while he was on the cell block somewhere, and they took him to the infirmary, and that's where they got to get loose. They weren't able to get as loose on the pod. So when they got down to the infirmary, it gave them the ability to get real loose. If you just started watching, hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and share this video. We greatly appreciate it. But they're holding this man as if they're trying to hold him like they're hanging him. Why would they have his hands tied behind his back and they hold him off the ground to the window if they weren't trying to demonstrate as if they were hanging him? Do y'all see that? Am I the only one that's seeing that? Why would you go take him off of the bed to hang him in the air with his face to the window? Because you want to have that experience that you were hanging the man? That there looks kind of deep to me. And we got to be honest there. Like, come on, man. Look at that, man. Honestly. Let's look at that. They picked this man up like they want to go hang him. 2 racist guys. I'm saying they're racist, man. Straight up. You can't see from the angle, but it looks like they were punching and kicking him below the waist, if you know what I mean. Ooh. Let's play that thing back.
Presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there. Many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment. and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. That includes 2 sergeants and 1 nurse. The family of Robert Brooks has released a statement that says, in part, with the Attorney General's release of these videos, members of the public can now view for themselves the horrific and extreme nature of the deadly attack. As viewers can see, Mr. Brooks was fatally, violently beaten by a group of officers whose job was to keep him safe. He deserved to live, and everyone else living in the Marcy Correctional Facility deserves to know they do not have to live in fear of violence at the hands of prison staff. Michael Schwartz.
Yeah, that's just so deep, man. It's so deep there, man. When we watch this, are these guys doing what they did, man? And this guy putting these gloves on after he hurt his hand. You said, the Red Furnace, you said they still watching cartoons from them officers' training classes. These officers are taught to do this. This is a taught behavior. Because we see there's sergeants in the building. And look at that. There's more than one sergeant. This is a sergeant right here too. There is more than one sergeant in the building. This is a sergeant now. We can see his arm. This is a sergeant now. There's more than one sergeant in the room. So for them to have multiple sergeants in the room and commit this act of violence, this is protocol, man. Straight up. There's no way around it. There's no other way to look at it. There's nothing to investigate. We all see this. And they've been doing this regularly. This is something that they do on a regular. They don't care because they are not reprimanded for it. Now, somebody died. They're going to address this situation here, but this is going to continue because it's protocol. They're taught this. When they're hired, when somebody's introducing them to what they need to do, they're told, you use excessive force, man. You need to go home to your family. Don't worry about the inmates. And for them to have whatever happened on the pod, and then they take this man to the infirmary to finish the job. Come on, man. You said, Red Furnace, you said, bro, it don't stop, won't stop. This is part of their heritage. I totally agree. I am in agreement. Totally. This is what they do. And they continue to do this. We're just hearing about this because somebody died. This happens every day in the prisons. I understand COs have a hard job, but this happens every day in the prison. There's no way that we should be talking about investigating something that we clearly see is a crime. Why? Why are we investigating something that's on video that's a crime? The charges should have been placed the next day. They didn't take 3 weeks to get this body cam. They can get that body cam ASAP. But they waited 3 weeks to put this to the public. They tried to hide it from the public, but they couldn't. That's the thing. They literally tried to hide this from the public because this happened December 9th, and we're just hearing about this December 28th. Come on, man. Let's be real. They couldn't hide it, and they tried, right? They literally wish that this person didn't have any family so that they didn't have to put this to the public. But they had to explain this because he died to the family. If this was a situation where he was just hurt, they would have never explained it to the family. You hear me? But being as though that he died, now they have to explain it. Mr. Steele, you said, I understand COs need to physically protect themselves. what's the investigation when he's handcuffed? Now, that's where I'm at, Mr. Streets. No cap. That is where I'm at. What is the investigation, man? They took this man and held him off his feet now to make him face a window with him handcuffed. They hog-tied him all the way to the infirmary where you're supposed to go when you need medical attention, right? And they continued to beat this man. This is their procedure in the prisons, man. The COs are taught this. And we all see clear as day that this was a criminal activity. They literally beat this man to death. But they didn't think that they were going to get in a situation until the man died. Now, I'm sure when he died, it registered. The attorney general is saying that she's investigating and she didn't want to bring this lightly to the public. Come on, man. The public is seeing what's going on inside these prisons, man. You can't hide it. The internet is too heavy now. But they continue to do this because they get away with it. And they only get addressed when somebody dies. So, when is it going to stop? Never. Because they don't care. Let's be honest.
Surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there. Many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment, and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. That includes 2 sergeants and 1 nurse. The family of Robert Brooks has released a statement that says in part,
it's crazy. I want to go by this statement real quick so we can hear what they say.
7 News.
And this is what they
the
say.
Union, or rather, the union representing those corrections officers did release a statement in response to the footage today, and that statement reads in part, "What we witnessed is incomprehensible to say the least, and is certainly not reflective of the great work that the vast majority of our membership conducts every day. This incident not only endangers our entire membership, but undermines the integrity of our profession. We cannot and do not condone."
The union should be held accountable. Everybody should be held accountable, man. And the world needs to come together on this. I wish the world would come together on this, man, because, okay, yes, people need to be incarcerated for their crimes, right? But this shouldn't give these people the ability to take things this far. Honestly. Basically, a Lynchburg, to use the correct words. Of course, they lynched that man. Straight up. We have to be honest, man. The man was lynched, man. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button and share this video, man. This right here is crazy. And yes, they are cowards, man. Straight up. No ifs, ands, or buts, man. These guys are straight cowards, man. And we gotta be real, man. It's crazy, man. And we look at this and we all see it. There is nothing to investigate, man. There's nothing to investigate. Straight up.
Attacking Brooks in the face, body, and neck while he is handcuffed on a table. A medical examiner later described his cause of death as asphyxia due to compression of the neck. A total of 13 corrections officers and a nurse have been implicated in this attack. Tonight, 7 News reporter Michael Schwartz is taking us through the body camera footage and showing us what happened leading up to Brooks' death.
Yeah, and we do want to warn you tonight, the video that you're about to see, it's very graphic and difficult to watch.
Disturbing new body camera footage shows the bloody face of 43-year-old Robert Brooks as he is being beaten by correction officers, struck more than a dozen times, all while handcuffed. It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional, just outside Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York attorney.
They literally need to investigate her. And that's just honest. She needs to be investigated because we all know that this isn't the first time that happened. And she's saying that she investigates every death. I'm sure there's been other deaths. But this right here, when this video came out, there is no way for them to justify this. She needs to be investigated. Kathy needs to be investigated. All these people that have positions that go to work and they make all this money to sit there, they need to be investigated, man.
Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week and on Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary.
Yeah, hey, Mr. Steele. I agree, man. Heard this statement over and over again when this stuff comes to light. Every single time. When this stuff comes to light, they want to justify and say, oh, we're looking into this. Everything's investigated. No. It only gets investigated when someone dies. Now they want to address it. And we got to be honest, man. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, subscribe. Hit that like button. Let's get the likes up and share this video. This is what's going on inside the systems, man. Some people need to be incarcerated for their crimes, correct. But nobody deserves to be treated like this. And we have to be real.
He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping.
And then we look at that, right? They beat the man with his own shoe, though, man. Seriously. Look at that, though. They stuffed this in his mouth, right?
His mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once, then hits him 3 more times.
Crazy.
Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him.
Look at this. They took the man's shoes off of him and started beating him with his shoes. This here was racially motivated, man. And we gotta be honest here, man. They took the man's shoes off and started beating him with his own shoes. Seriously? Come on, man. The whole situation is crazy. And they need to get a life sentence. I just want to be honest, man. These dudes deserve a life sentence. No way around it. The people that cooperate, give them a 25-year sentence. There should be no slap on the wrist at all. Their address should be put out there. Make them feel uncomfortable. You know? Information about them should be put out everywhere. Who they are, their names. They should be feeling uncomfortable right now. There's no way that they should be sleeping comfortable. And I want to be honest.
3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times. An officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar and presses him against the window.
Do y'all see the lifelessness of his body when they yank him up? Look at that.
Yanks Brooks up by the collar.
Look how lifeless this man is, with his hands behind his back, after he just took a serious rib shot that he couldn't even embrace for when it was coming. That rib shot that he just took was vicious, and he's lifeless. They know what they was doing, man. They had intentions on hurting this man to where he was going to be in the infirmary for 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you what they do. When they beat you like this, they leave you back away in the infirmary. That's why they beat him down there where they beat him at, because they were going to keep him down here for weeks until he healed up so that nobody could see this. And I want y'all to understand that this is how they do. They were going to beat this man and leave him in the infirmary for weeks until he healed up so nobody could report about it. And he was going to get out and tell everybody what happened to him if he lived. And people were going to be like, damn, that's messed up. And that's it. They weren't going to allow him to call his family. They weren't going to allow him to have no visits. They were not going to allow nothing while he sat in the infirmary and sat there and healed. But they didn't expect for him to die. Mr. Streets, I want to see the whole autopsy. Me too, bro. Me too. I can't wait to see it, because it's going to say more than just that asphyxiation. It's going to say way more than that. I'm sure he has broken ribs. He has more broken body. He might have got some teeth knocked out. It's some things that happen. And they were going to keep him in the infirmary. That was their plan. That's why they probably didn't go as hard while they were on the pod. But once he got to the infirmary, they beat him very severely, because this is their protocol. They're used to beating people and then leaving them in the infirmary until they heal up, and then come down there acting like, you all right now? You feeling better? Because you have no way for nobody to know when they leave you in the back of the infirmary. And the nurses, they're not going to report and document it because they're told not to. They're told, you don't get involved with this. Let him heal up. Boom, 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 right? And we see that they just beat this man in the unit where you're supposed to get medical treatment, because this is their procedure, man. I'm telling you this because I know. This is their procedure, man. If you ever been incarcerated, you understand this is how they do, right? And they did it whereas though they thought nobody else was going to see it but them and the nurse. You feel where I'm coming from? They thought nobody else was going to know about this but them and the nurse. That's why they were so comfortable doing it the way they did it. They didn't expect for it to go this far. And now we see what happens in the facilities. Red Furnace wouldn't even be surprised if they walk. That's part of the humiliation. Now, the only thing, I don't think they're walking. We're not surprised about a lot of things, but they're not walking on this one. This camera and this footage is too severe. It's too severe. The way they sat there and beat this man, and I'm hoping that they get a jury that has some common sense. And what's gonna happen, and I'm gonna tell you, right? They're gonna have some people that do cooperate. Everybody, that all 14 of these people, they don't want to go down, especially if they weren't the ones that was punching. They're going to end up cooperating. And as they cooperate now, they're going to identify what happened. Straight up. Because they want to make it out of the situation.
And presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back.
He's held there for 3 minutes. Now, this was all counted and calculated because we got to understand that this body cam footage, it has been edited. You know, this is the short version. It's a longer version out there, and the version is going to come out. It's a longer version out there, but this is the edited version, you know, I guess to get right to the point. And then we look at this right here. He's looking over here like, you know, this is normal. This is normal. This is what we do. They're sitting there. This is normal. He's sitting there. This is normal. Everybody, this is normal for them to do what they're doing over here. This is the procedure to take somebody over here and hold them up to the window for whatever reason. If they're kicking him, you know, doing whatever they're doing while he's in the air, right? But this is normal for everyone to sit there and watch this. And I know y'all see that. It's protocol, man.
Back on the table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there. Many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
Do you see this here? This is the Klan, man. We got to be honest. This is the Klan. If you haven't already hit that like button, let's get the likes up, man. I really appreciate everybody that's tuning in. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and share this video. This is what's going on. These guys are sitting there smirking, comfortable with something like this happening because they've seen this program before. They understand that this is what happens. People are brought down to the infirmary for this procedure. And then I guess this is where they get the treatment. After they get beat, we give you the treatment right afterwards. You need something, get you bandaged up after they beat you. And we are all watching and witnessing this. After they beat you, then this is where you get assistance at. And if you don't know about the infirmary is the hospital for the jail. That is the doctor's office for the jail. They continue to do this because this is what they do. And we got to be honest. They didn't care. Now they're going to act concerned because somebody died and they're worrying about going to jail, which they should have already been in jail. They should have been in jail the next day. This is a criminal activity that we have all witnessed. You said, not one person there looking like that ain't right. They was enjoying every second of it. And you are correct, Mr. Streets. They are enjoying this, man. The Klan. The Klan is enjoying watching the murder of a man, a black man. They're enjoying this. Straight up. And we have to be honest with this, man. This is like right in front of our eyes. And all of their body cameras were turned off, but one of them, 4 of them, 4 of the guys that were doing the punching, their body cameras were turned off purposely because they didn't expect, I guess, for it to go this far. They just wanted to beat him till near death, because we can all see that the beating they were putting on this man, and he was defenseless, was crazy. The man was defenseless, and the way that they were beating on him, they had intentions on breaking some bones.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment, and this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. Disturbing new body camera footage shows the bloody face of 43-year-old Robert Brooks as he is being beaten by correction officers, struck more than a dozen times, all while handcuffed. It happened the night of December 9th in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional, just outside Utica.
My office investigates every case in which an officer of the law, including a correctional officer, may have caused the death of a civilian.
New York Attorney General Letitia James opened an investigation last week, and on
We see that, man. She said that with no care. She didn't care. She just had to explain this because she's the Attorney General, but she didn't care.
Friday released body camera footage from 4 officers' body cameras.
I do not take lightly the release of this video.
She said, I do not take lightly the release of this video. I'm like, what is there to take lightly from releasing this video? This is a gruesome crime that has been committed by employees of the state. Let's be real. Chad Diggy, he said, it looks like the big dog was bitten and they all defended him. And why was he taken to the infirmary? Basically to beat on him. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Chad Diggy. That's why that is the protocol within their system. Whenever they have those issues on the pods, they take the people to the infirmary to beat on them and then let them heal. This went far. You said, matter of fact, they probably purposely had the cameras going so they could enjoy watching it at their get-togethers. Ain't no telling how many footages they got. See, and I could agree with that too. They might have the footage so that they can go back and watch it later. Because we've seen, these officers celebrate after things like this happen. And definitely, Chadiggy, the video is redacted. We know that. This started on the pod somewhere. This started in the cell block somewhere. But they got busy in the infirmary because they expected, we're going to beat this man down in the infirmary and leave him there. He's not going to get any phone calls for a couple weeks. He's going to be restricted from visits for a couple weeks. So when he heals up, there's only going to be speculation of this crime. There's not going to be any evidence. Body cameras turned off. Whoever kept the body cameras on was probably a sergeant. And we see this is how they do.
That night at 9:21, body camera footage from
Crazy.
Sergeant Trombley shows a handcuffed Brooks being escorted outside, his body parallel with the ground. A minute later, he's seen being carried by 3 officers into the infirmary. He's placed on an exam table. At 9:24, video shows this officer with his body cam off walk into the room and shove a cloth in Brooks's mouth. He punches Brooks in the face once.
You see how he stuffs the towel in his mouth because he's expecting if I punch him in the mouth with this towel, it's not going to hurt my hand, right? But it hurt his hand. And you got to pay attention to that, man. Crazy.
Once, then hits him 3 more times. Then this officer with the backwards hat punches Brooks and smacks him 3 times with Brooks's own shoe. At this point, 8 officers surround Brooks, some just watching. At 9:26, the officer that shoves something in Brooks's mouth can be seen stomping on him. 3 other officers then hold Brooks down as one officer punches him again. Seconds after taking his foot off Brooks, this officer punches Brooks in the rear 3 times.
And like I said, the man's right hand was hurting so bad that he had to start swinging with the left. And he started kicking him because his hand was hurting that bad.
Officer then comes in with leg restraints. By 9:27, just 5 minutes of the 43-year-old being in this room, a winded Brooks is pulled up. The right side of his nose is bloody. An officer changes his gloves and with another officer yanks Brooks up by the collar.
Lifeless. He's sitting there lifeless. And they still hold him in the air like this.
And presses him against the window. He's held there for 3 minutes before he's put back on
the lynching. They're hanging him there for 3 minutes. Why are y'all hanging him there? Come on, man. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and share this video. I greatly appreciate it.
Table. Brooks's pants are then stripped off his body. By this point, more than a dozen members of law enforcement are there, many watching, some seen smiling during the ordeal.
This is horrific.
Norman Effman is an attorney with more than 50 years of experience representing incarcerated individuals and correction officers.
What's going to happen here is clear to me. There's going to be an indictment. And this is going to be a homicide case.
The Times-Union reports that court records accuse 5 officers of hitting Brooks. One of them has since resigned. Meantime, Governor Kathy Hochul has called for the firing of all 14 state employees involved. That includes 2 sergeants and 1 nurse. The family of Robert Brooks has released a statement that says, in part, with the Attorney General's release of these videos, members of the public can now view for themselves the horrific and extreme nature of the deadly attack. As viewers can see, Mr. Brooks was fatally, violently beaten by a group of officers whose job was to keep him safe. He deserved to live, and everyone else living in the Marcy Correctional Facility deserves to know they do not have to live in fear of violence at the hands of prison staff. Michael Schwartz, 7 News.
Hey, man, we all see what's going on here. We all see these officers beat this man to death. And we see that this wasn't justified. Straight up. Hey, listen. Chad Diggy, I said that. The RICO better be attached. This here is a RICO case. I am not going to lie. This is a total RICO situation, man. And Mr. Steeks, you said all correctional institutes have cool COs and some violent COs, but this prison must be hell. Hope this changes the way they do business. I agree, man. I definitely agree, man. And you know, they know that they were taking this too far, but they were so used to going down to the infirmary and beating on inmates and nothing happens. This is where you're supposed to go when you need medical attention, when you need medical treatment. But they beat this man on a medical bed, stripped him his clothes, continued to beat him, hung him in front of the window, and everybody watched. Even the sergeants now. Now, sergeants are supposed to be the ones regulating the other uniform officers. But the sergeants are the ones that are agreeing with this behavior. And we got to be honest. You said, Neil, you said, I saw it on another video. They stuffed his mouth with a towel, choked him, while other officers smashed him on the face, lifted him up by the neck, slammed him, and started punching him again. I showed that. If you go back and watch this video, I showed it all. I showed it all. And it's deep. This is their protocol, and we see that. You know, if you go back and watch the live, you'll see throughout the live that I showed it multiple times and I broke it down throughout the live. You know, crazy. That man wasn't even on foot. No hands behind. Sad. He wasn't a threat. Not at all, man. And listen, not at all, man. And I really hope they get what they deserve. I hope they all are charged with murder ASAP. Black people getting owned all the time, man. All the time. It's foul. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. If you haven't hit that like button, hit that like button. Let's get the likes up. I appreciate y'all. Neil, you said sometimes this happens if an inmate has bad paperwork. This could be one of it. It's terrible though. No. This situation, we already know what happened with his paperwork. He stabbed his girlfriend. He got 12 years. He got 7 years in on the 12. And whatever happened before, this was some racially motivated stuff. This was racially motivated. And I gotta agree, because we don't see any black officers. These are all white officers. And they're beating this man, and they took him to the infirmary because this is their protocol. We got to be honest. Ain't no telling. They was saying to him, I'm sure they was talking filthy to him. Most NYPD is the mob tied. Of course. He had 12 years, definitely. He had 7 in on that 12. He been down since 2017. He had 7 in on it. And we see where it went, man. It went crazy. It went crazy, man. These guys acted as the Klan. And we got to be honest here, man. And I appreciate everybody that's watching the channel, man. I appreciate everybody that subscribed to the channel, man. I really appreciate y'all, man. And I hope y'all continue to watch and stay in here with SBGB TV. And, you know, we about to get out of here. And I appreciate y'all. You know, sometimes y'all can call in, you know, and give y'all opinion on what's going on as we are live. When we're live, it's cool to call in. I love to hear your opinion, you know, but we about to get on out of here, and I appreciate it. And y'all can go back and watch the footage of us breaking it down of what happened. I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all already know, man. It's your boy DZ. It's not about the setback. It's about the get back. Now.